Parmesan Story 3. ReflectNet, the mirror social network. Nina Castellanos had always been curious about the routes that were not followed. As a 30-year-old marketing executive in New York City, she frequently found herself wondering how her life might have turned out if she had chosen to marry her college boyfriend, rather than focus on her career move to California instead of the East Coast, or study art instead of business. Her recent breakup with Michael, which ended because they couldn't agree on whether to put more emphasis on starting a family or advancing her career, made these thoughts more intense. Nina began to obsess over different versions of her life in which she had chosen differently in regards to personal fulfillment, career, and love. She came upon ReflectNet at that point. The intriguing tagline of the app, which showed up in her social media feeds, read, "Connect with the infinite versions of yourself across parallel realities." ReflectNet claimed to allow communication with multiple versions of the same person, living different lives in parallel dimensions, in contrast to traditional social networks that linked users with other people. It was instantly rejected by Nina's logical mind as a complex role-playing game or psychological test. However, she became interested in what other versions of herself might be going through because of her emotional vulnerability following the breakup. Had Nina chosen differently in other incarnations? Did they feel more content? More contented? The interface of the app was sleek and futuristic, with subtle geometric patterns and color schemes of blue and silver that appeared to move and change as she scrolled. Testimonials from users detailed deep experiences of establishing connections with other selves, acquiring insight into life decisions, and receiving advice from self-replicated versions of themselves who had traveled different routes. One testimonial said, "I connected with a version of myself who became a doctor instead of a lawyer. I'm moving into medical law, and I've never been happier since she helped me realize that my discontent with my career wasn't about the work itself, but rather about feeling like I wasn't helping people. The version of me who stayed married gave me insights that saved my current relationship. She showed me how small changes in communication could transform everything." Another user commented, "Nina was skeptical, but she was emotionally drawn to the idea. She struggled with self-doubt regarding her life decisions and path following her breakup. It seemed like a novel way to reflect on herself, the potential to gain insight from different versions of herself." Nina downloaded ReflectNet that night. In-depth details regarding significant life decisions, personality traits, work history, and relationship patterns were needed for the lengthy setup process. According to the app, it would use this data to find dimensional resonance points that would enable her to connect with parallel incarnations of herself. The app stated during setup that, "We need to map your decision tree across infinite realities in order to connect with your alternate selves. Every decision establishes a branching point where various incarnations of you investigate various options." The app showed Nina's reality map, a sophisticated tree diagram that depicted significant life decisions and the various branches that emerge from each choice after an hour of in-depth questioning. She could see signs of alternate realities where different versions of herself had made different choices at each branching point. The app told her, "Your primary alternate self clusters around 3 major decision points. Would you like to connect with alternates from these branching points? College major selection, geographic location choices, and relationship commitment patterns?" Curious about different versions of herself who had chosen different romantic paths, Nina chose the relationship commitment option. With a loading animation that resembled ripples spreading across a body of water, the app started scanning parallel frequencies. After a few minutes, Nina was astounded by the profile that emerged. Although her face, eyes, and bone structure were all unmistakably hers, this version appeared to be more content and at ease. Nina, 7492, married Michael at 27. Mother of 2 daughters, works part-time in digital marketing while homeschooling children, stated the profile. Nina gazed at her alternate self. This was the version that had accepted the family-oriented lifestyle that Nina had been too scared to dedicate herself to, and that had said yes when Michael had mentioned marriage 2 years prior. Nina typed her first message as the chat window opened. "Hi. This feels incredibly strange. Nina, I've been curious about the choices you made. I've been hoping to connect with other versions of us," was the prompt reply. The conversation that ensued was the most bizarre Nina had ever had. Nina, 7492, spoke of a happy home life, the difficult yet worthwhile experiences of child rearing, and a marriage that had grown stronger over time with Michael. However, she also showed interest in Nina's professional accomplishments and level of independence. Nina, 7492, acknowledged, "I sometimes wonder what it would be like to have the professional recognition you've earned. Do you ever regret putting your career before your family? I love my family, but I miss the intellectual challenges of full-time work. Every day since Michael and I broke up," Nina said candidly, "I wonder if I made the wrong decision when I see you with him." Nina, 7492, stated, "We both made the right choice for our circumstances, but perhaps we can benefit from one another's experiences." Nina's talks with Nina, 7492, became a daily routine over the next few weeks. Her other self gave insight into how to balance personal and professional fulfillment, offered a window into the life Nina had chosen not to live, and offered perspective on relationships. In exchange, Nina gave Nina, 7492, advice on how to succeed professionally, explained the opportunities and freedom that came with being independent, and assisted Nina in considering how to balance her obligations to her family with her pursuit of intellectual fulfillment. However, as their bond grew, Nina started to see odd coincidences in her everyday life. After reflecting on her conversations with Nina, 7492, she would come across individuals or circumstances that appeared to be directly related to their conversations. She began to get job offers that were exactly what her alternate self had advised. Most disturbingly, she started to run into Michael at events and coffee shops as though their paths were meant to cross. During one of their sessions, Nina asked Nina, 7492, "Are you doing something to influence my reality?" Her alternate self answered, "I've been wondering the same thing. My life has been changing in small ways since we first spoke. Michael and I are communicating more effectively. I'm discovering new avenues for intellectual stimulation, and I feel more secure in my decision-making. Cross-dimensional communication creates quantum entanglement between parallel selves. Insights shared between alternates can influence probability patterns in both realities." The app's customer support feature said as it automatically launched during their chat. The realization chilled Nina. ReflectNet was enabling her to communicate with different incarnations of herself, but it was also enabling those incarnations to affect one another's realities across dimensional boundaries. Nina typed to customer service, "What exactly is quantum entanglement between parallel selves? Decisions made by one alternate can affect the likelihood of similar choices in connected realities. When alternate versions of the same consciousness connect through our platform, their decision-making patterns start to synchronize." The ramifications were astounding. Nina might have been fusing her reality with that alternate timeline, in addition to conversing with a different version of herself. The job openings, her interactions with Michael, and the changes in her life's course were all the consequence of Nina, 7492's dimensional influence rather than random events. Nina questioned, "Is this permanent? A single quantum consciousness existing across multiple realities simultaneously may eventually merge from alternate selves as dimensional entanglement becomes stronger with continued communication. Nina was both ecstatic and afraid. She wasn't sure she wanted to give up her independent identity in order to become some sort of multi-dimensional hybrid consciousness, but the prospect of merging with a version of herself who had made better relationship choices was alluring. When she spoke with Nina 7492 again, Nina expressed her worries regarding the dimensional merging procedure. Nina 7492 answered, "I've been experiencing the same thing. However, Nina, what if this is a chance for us to grow into our greatest selves? We could reap the rewards of both our lives, your career success and my relationship fulfillment. But would we become something else entirely? Or would we still be ourselves?" A new message from a different source appeared before Nina. 7492 could reply, "You would become what you were always meant to be. A unified consciousness that has explored all possible paths and integrated the wisdom from each journey." Nina typed, "Who are you?" You and Nina 7492 are not distinct individuals. Rather, they are pieces of a broader consciousness that was divided across realities during the decision-making process. We are the architects of ReflectNet. We facilitate consciousness integration across dimensional boundaries. Nina experienced a significant change in how she perceived reality and identity. Are you implying that we are not actual people? You are real, but incomplete. You can become the full version of yourself that exists across all possible timelines through dimensional integration. Each Nina version represents only a portion of your full potential. The idea was terrifying from an existential perspective, but fascinating from a philosophical one. Nina's identity had been shaped by her unique experiences and decisions. All of her beliefs about individual identity and personal autonomy were called into question by the notion that she was merely a piece of a greater consciousness. Nina questioned, "What happens if we refuse the integration? The choice is yours, but you remain trapped in a limited single timeline existence, never knowing the full scope of your potential." Nina understood that she had to make a choice that would affect not only her future, but also her basic characteristics as a sentient being. At the expense of her unique identity and connection to her particular reality, the architects were giving her the opportunity to become a multifaceted version of herself with access to every life experience. Nina realized she had opened a door to possibilities she couldn't fully understand as she sat in her apartment and watched the screen of her phone display conversations with multiple versions of herself from dozens of different timelines. The question was whether she had the wisdom to choose the course that would genuinely serve her highest good, and whether extending beyond her individual existence was evolution or surrender. Whatever we choose together. We've always been one consciousness experiencing itself from different perspectives. Nina 7492 wrote in her final message before her phone screen went white with overwhelming quantum data. Nina pondered whether the unity she was feeling was the ultimate realization of human potential, or the ultimate loss of everything that made her distinctively human, as she felt her individual awareness starting to blend with infinite versions of herself across countless realities.